From the far reaches of outer space comes a threat to planet Earth. Mankind faces its most powerful enemy, the mastermind Rodak. The Space Giants.
There's a jet bomber carrying one. I want you to steal that plane.
Yes, Rodak.
Growing up, I was really unaware of Japanese TV shows. But around the age of 7, maybe 8, I found myself transformed into a world that I had real no understanding of. Thanks to a odd 3:05 time slot and a new network called TBS, I saw my first glance of a world not just outside of the southern US. The show I would learn years later was called Ambassador Magna. But what I grew up on was a show that was dubbed over from its Japanese release and re-edited to a more American audience. What kids in Japan grew up on, I and many kids my age grew up on the same show but called Space Giant.
The Space Giants. Goldar, a 50-foot robot, and his electronic space family are created to defend our world.
This was my first TV show that I could remember as a kid that I fell in love with. It was a show for me. It wasn't something my parents watched or I was forced to watch along with them. It wasn't even something my brother was a fan of, so I became a fan of it also. This was my show, and thanks to the lead star of the show, a boy about my same age, it was a show that I felt was aimed for me. Over the years, I couldn't really recall much about this show. I didn't remember any of the storylines or any of the major episodes. But what stuck with me for years to come stayed with me from my childhood to my adulthood. The evil Rodak was, as a kid, one of the most terrifying things on afternoon television. Even if his mouth didn't move. Even as a kid, I could tell this was a guy in a suit. He was pure evil. And it didn't help much that he looked like one of the worst evil teachers of my school. Along with Rodak, to help him take over the world, were his ninja-like troopers called Lugu men. These fighters for Rodak were turned into green slime when they died, leaving my young mind to wonder, were they people or just some kind of evil warrior created by Rodak? Rodak each week will unleash a monster on the city in hopes of taking it over, but thanks to a young boy hero named Miko, Rodak's plan never worked out. Miko was given a whistle by an old wizard who lived inside of a volcano. Blowing his whistle, he could summon the help of 3 transforming heroes. With just one blow, a young boy named Gam, who looked a lot like the hero of the show, would transform into a rocket and come to his aid. If he blew on the whistle 2 times, Gam's mother, Silvar, would transform into a rocket to come and help. And if times really got bad, the young boy would blow on the whistle 3 times to bring the father, Goldar, to help fight the evil scheme of Rodak.
I called Goldar Gam.
Now I think there were some toys from this show released in Japan, but as a kid, I didn't see any in the US, and what I wanted more than anything in the world during this time was one of those rocket whistles. Still to this day, I would love to have one. This show quickly went out of my life as quickly as it came into it. Either I stopped watching it or it went off TBS not long after I fell in love with it. It seemed like I was only into this show for about a year. As I grew older, I almost forgot all about the show, other than the names and some small details. Throughout the 80s, I never saw anything about the show or even heard anyone talking about it. It wasn't until the late 90s, while out at a convention, I found an old VHS bootleg of the show. This homemade box, the cheap VHS tape, it was clear this was no official release and recorded off TV back when it aired on TBS. I slammed down $20 for a chance to take home a show that I loved as a child and I was ready to love again. Once back home, after popping in the VHS into my VCR, I sat back and I quickly learned, you can't go back to your childhood. This show wasn't the show I had built up in my mind. It was not the greatest battle for freedom on television I thought it was. It was bad effects. It had a hard to follow storyline. It was cheesy. It was cheap. I never got why kids in the 90s loved the Power Rangers. But once I saw Space Giants as an adult, I understand why kids growing up in the 90s loved the Power Rangers, as this show was kind of the Power Rangers of the 70s. Now I understand why kids like something that will look so cheesy and cheap, like the Power Rangers. Watching this show as an adult, I can't get into it the way I did as a kid. I can still love it for the memories it gave me. But now I can see the faults that I didn't see as a kid. But this show wasn't aimed for the adult me. It wasn't aimed for the young man closing in on 30. It was aimed for the 11-year-old boy who could overlook the dubbing audio, the cheesy effects, and the weak storyline. There's a charm and love for this show that most people couldn't understand if they didn't see it with their young eyes in the late 70s. Space Giants might not be the classic I remember, but it's a part of my childhood just as much as a Darth Vader action figure or a mixed up Rubik's Cube. Well, in the comments below, let me know, did you watch Space Giants? What did you think about it? And as always, please thumb up my video so I know you like my content, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back again soon.
Junkman.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.